Nerds, I'm Tom, and here I am talking yet again about another roll and write game, but this one is at least a little bit different, like, not a lot, but, a little bit. So in this one you got two big chunky dice that you roll, and then you mark stuff off on these cards in little puzzly ways. These are dry erase cards, and it's a pretty meta game because it's rolling realms. The realms are the other games in the Stonemaier library, like Scythe, Viticulture, Euphoria, Wingspan, all that kind of stuff. And this was originally designed to be a print and play with no player interaction and infinitely scalable so that people could play it over Zoom and stuff. And then, it was really popular, so we decided to publish it as an actual game. And that no player interaction thing is one of my complaints, and I'll get into that in a minute. And I do really like how this game is really easy to learn and to teach, not only just because the man, the myth, the legend, Rodney Smith, has a great Watch It Played video for this, but Jamie Stegmaier himself has a lot of live play videos on his channel where he goes through like a round of the game, so you get to see all of the different realms in action and see exactly how they work. The uniqueness of this game does really come with that realms aspect. Everybody draws three, or really one person will draw three of these realms, and then everybody else will follow and pull out the exact same ones. So we all have the same three realms. We roll the dice. We're going to do 3 different rounds. Each round has 9 turns, and then so after the 9 turns, then we'll score up and we'll wipe those 3 realms and get 3 new realms, right? So every game you're gonna have 9 different realms, but in like combinations of clumps of 3. So not only do you have 9 different little mini games, but the different combinations and way they work together does mean that every single game is going to be pretty unique. Now it is really interesting to see how even when multiple players, all have the exact same, we essentially have the exact same everything, right? We have the same realms, and we roll the dice, and we have the same dice, we just have different opportunities, and we put them in different realms, and we do make different choices, and especially because there's a lot of resources. There's 3 different resource types, and you can spend each resource for 2 different things. So there's 6 different dice manipulation things you can do. So again, I'm pretty surprised at how when we all have pretty much the same everything, a lot of players can come up with very different points and different routes, and ultimately the realms look different per player. Now I have heard that you can play it where everybody just draws 3 different realms, because again, with no player interaction, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But it does seem, because some of the combinations can be better or worse than others, like some combinations you can feel really starved for resources, especially because some of them are like the resources come a lot later, like you get a big burst of resources in some of the later rounds versus like a trickle every single round from some of the other ones. So if we got really unbalanced resource generation in that way, it couldn't, you could feel like it's unfair. I mean, I'd be down to try it, but I certainly see that it could be flawed. But all those little mini games which are fun, and the way they combine together, plus all the really interesting manipulation with the resources, that's what really makes the game fun. Now, not super unique. I think the main thing that actually really makes it unique is that it's like a living roll and write. They've already announced that there's going to be a Terra Mystica pack coming out for it, and they're of course going to have more realms for the future unpublished games from Stonemaier. Even there's probably going to be a Rolling Realms realm, right? So I really like that aspect a lot. Like, we've seen expansions for roll and writes a couple of times. It's pretty rare, but the idea of having consistent expansions, almost like an LCG, every so often is really interesting to me. I'm really excited to see that. Now, those are all the positives I have. The only real negatives that I have is really like 2. One is the lack of player interaction can be a pretty big, like, it's not an issue, but it's just, that's never my favorite type of, like, it's like we're all simultaneously playing a solo game, and that's really what it is. I mean, granted, again, it was done that way on purpose for, like, Zoom, doing things over Zoom in mind, so there is a benefit to it, but just in general, I like games that involve player interaction. So maybe some of the later realms will involve player interaction, who knows? Another negative is something I also kind of mentioned before, is that the idea that sometimes you can get a combination where things don't really work out very well, where like you feel starved for resources. I mean, then again, everybody could be starved for resources, so at least it's balanced. And some of the realms are harder to explain than others, like probably Charterstone is the most difficult to explain because while you do take one die, you still have to mark down what the other die is, but you're not taking that other die, so it's a kind of obscure thing to explain. And then in terms of components, I do have one complaint. Like, I think it was really smart for them to do these as dry erase cards, and it does work, but just by virtue of it being dry erase, dry erase isn't perfect, you know? Like, there's going to be some residue sometimes, and you have all that when you wipe it off, there's all that little clumpy stuff all over the place. So, and especially because it's a living roll and write, I get the feeling that it's going to degrade a bit over time. Like, it's just not going to be, I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but you know, as time goes on, you're going to be like, well, I already bought this game and I bought a bunch of expansions, but now the base game components are starting to look kind of crappy. Maybe I should rebuy the base game. You know, I don't know. I mean, mostly that's for people who are very perfectionists about things looking really nice, which I am, and I'm assuming a lot of you are, because that's a lot of board gamers seem to be that way. But anyways, I do think this game is hella dope. I like it a lot better than I thought I was going to. I really thought it was just going to be, well, you know, I mean, you roll dice and you mark stuff off in a puzzly way, so it's not going to be that unique. And yes, that is accurate, but again, all those little mini games and different puzzles, you know, are really interesting, and they interact together with each other in a really interesting way. The fact that it's living is super cool. I highly recommend y'all check this out. Link in the purchase down below. Damn it.